Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. Alright, so we're listening to this music because it is a very emotional song and it tends to get me very open to my emotional side, which is our creative side, so it kind of allows things to flow a lot better. And with that, church is in session. Okay, so today I'm going to challenge you guys on your beliefs. I'm specifically going to challenge you. Let me say this first. So first of all, what I want to do, I want to end the confusion once and for all. I want to clarify a very important subject on the planet, in the Bible, in your heart, in your mind, that's been there your entire life, probably since you're a little child, maybe even as young as 5 years old. So I posted this on my Facebook page about 3 or 4 days ago. It's my personal page. It says, I sincerely hope you have a blessed day and that you get $1 million cash in crisp $100 bills. Amen. And you know what? I meant it. So the real question is, what did you actually hear? And that's all going to be based on the filters that you use to listen. The challenge with filters is they actually get in the way. They keep you from hearing what is actually being said. So for the narcissist, they're going to be using the either-or mentality. And when you read the Bible through the either-or mentality, it changes everything. There's so many limitations that either-or does. It literally cuts everything in half. It's like, well, if you do this, then you can't do that. It's like, why? Who says? Another filter is lack. If you have a lack mentality, you're going to see and view everything in lack. Or if you have so that would be called a poverty consciousness or poverty mentality. Another mentality is abundance, prosperity mentality. These people will read the Bible and they will hear something completely different. So obviously a person with a poverty mentality or lack mentality, when they read the Bible and listen to what God says, they're not actually going to hear it. They're going to hear poverty, lack, suffering, struggling. Whereas someone with a prosperous, wealthy mentality, or what they call it a prosperity consciousness, those people are going to hear how to get rich. Because if you actually read the Old Testament, they actually teach you how to get rich. Like they taught, who was that guy that had the sheep? I don't know if it was Daniel. I don't think it was Daniel. I think it was someone else. God came along and said, hey, here's what I want you to do. I want you to put up fence line with these I think it was like fences made out of reeds and they had like stripes or something. What that will do, it was cause the sheep's fur or whatever to change color, to do something. I forget what it did, but what it will do, it will make him more prosperous because the sheep will grow in a much better way where you can make more money off of them. So at first he was actually resistant. God's like, just do it, trust me. And he did it. And all of a sudden, boom, it happened. He's like, oh my God, holy, he didn't say, oh my God, holy shit, but you get my point. He prospered because he listened to God. Now somebody reading that same story somehow, miraculously, will twist it in half and turn it into poverty. Like, wait, I don't think you understand. That was actually a teaching of how to be prosperous. How do you get lack out of that? How do you get that we're supposed to live in poverty? Like how do you do that? So once again, people that are prosperous mentality, they're going to be like, oh, okay, so God's teaching him how to become prosperous. Whereas somebody now here's another filter. It's called mismatching. You have matching and mismatching. Now you can change these. These are called meta programs. You can change your meta programs, by the way. So a mismatcher literally will mismatch what he just read and heard, and he will flip it in 180 degrees and he'll turn it into the negative. If you say it's a beautiful day, they'll say it's an ugly day, or they'll say no, it's not. If you say let's go right, they'll say let's go left. So that's a mismatcher. These people go through their whole lives like it's a really horrible experience, by the way. And this is essentially, now if you're a mismatcher, it does not mean you're a narcissist, but narcissists are always mismatchers, period. So if someone's mismatching you all the time, I would literally just be like, hey, let them go. In fact, during our NLP training, it was the second major training, a 5-week training. They said, and this was when we were learning about meta programs. They're like, well, so what do we do if we get a mismatcher as a client? They're like, cut them loose. Like, don't work with them because they are impossible to work with. You can't help them because they literally will reverse everything you teach them. Can they change? Yes, they can change, but in general, it would take a massive amount of pain. And it would probably have to happen multiple times for probably decades. And then one day they're like, man, this mismatching thing is just not working. Because that's the thing. Mismatching doesn't help. It screws you over. It screws you over socially, relationship, love, financially. It's like if someone says, hey, here's how to make $1 million, they're like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. And so it really, and this is essentially when you're talking about narcissists, what do you hear about narcissists? Like they always screw themselves over because they go against what is best for them. Meaning they just mismatch themselves. So this is good for me. This is going to make me prosperous. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do the opposite. So let's read this right here. It says, I don't know who needs to hear this, but there are people speaking nicely about you behind your back. People are conspiring about ways to help you. People are advocating for you. People are genuinely rooting for you behind your back. Not everyone is against you, although it may feel like it at times, but there's a lot of people that are actually rooting for you, and they're actually in your corner. And here's the funny thing. A lot of those people, they're actually in the narcissist circle. A lot of those people start realizing over time, like, man, even the flying monkeys, because a lot of times flying monkeys don't know that they're flying monkeys. They've been manipulated into believing negative things about people like you or others. And eventually they start figuring this shit out. Like, oh, motherfucker, this guy's been using me this whole time. So even people in their circle, we'll call it, are actually rooting for you and they're on your side. And they really want you to win. And then you have people out there like me. I spend all my time making these videos simply because I want you to get out of your rut. I want you to find a way. I want to say something that just clicks with you, and all of a sudden the door opens and you start moving forward. There's a lot of people like me out there online, in public, at the coffee shop, at the grocery store. There's people that you may have not actually met that are pulling for you and you don't even know it. You know, there's people at businesses. I'm going to take one, San Francisco Weekly. It's a weekly paper. I don't think they actually put them out anymore. It's more online now. But there have been times when something went through that wasn't supposed to go through, or somebody was trying to stop and all of a sudden it went through. It's because somebody higher up saw me and they saw the situation. And they realized the salesperson was just being a dick and they were screwing me over. And they put it through. Now, I didn't even know this until years later. You know, a lot of times you have angels in the flesh out there on the sidewalk in a car that are already, they're literally physically looking out for you. I can't tell you how many. I wouldn't say it's every day. But I'll like notice a woman maybe with her daughter, young child, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, there's a really weird guy around them. So what I'll do, I'll pull around the parking lot, or as I'm at a stoplight, I'll be watching the situation. And so what I'm trying to say is there's many times where there are people that are watching, making sure that you are safe. There are people that live in your neighborhood. There are people that you've never even spoken to, maybe walked by, nodded, or waved to, that are pulling for you. They really are. So a few years ago when I was going through a really rough time, I had a neighbor, And she always had kind of had this demeanor when she was with her daughter. It was a very nice, peaceful demeanor. And after about a year, I was going through a really, really tough time. It was maybe even a year and a half. She just one day when I walked by, because if she'd say hello, I just hello, and I just keep going. And she just goes, "Are you okay?" And I stopped and I looked at her and I said, "Honestly, no." And I briefly explained to her what was going on. And she talked to me. And that little conversation had it had a huge long-term impact on me. It's why I feel so good today in the last year or plus, and why I've been so powerful. That one little moment slightly shifted my trajectory, maybe by 1% or 0.5%. But as you go on, it keeps going up and up and up and up and up and at a different trajectory. And all of a sudden, you're in a much, much better space. So my question is, when I, read that off about how I said, I sincerely hope you have a blessed day and that you get a $1 million in cash, crisp $100 bills, etc. Amen. I asked you, what did you hear? Because that is going to reveal your meta program, or the filter could be a belief that you're filtering it through. So here's what I meant. A lot of my friends are, they're early 50s, mid 50s to late 50s, maybe even early 60s, the people I went to high school with, and even their parents are older. And so their parents are having medical issues. They themselves are having knee surgeries and they're in pain and they're about to retire, or they're struggling, like, how am I going to pay my house off? I can't work the way I used to. So a lot of them are going through a hard time. A lot of them haven't been on a vacation in 15 years, maybe even 20 years. And they just want to take 1 week just to go to Hawaii and just relax and not worry about anything, not worry about the bills. So here's the deal. Do I genuinely wish that my friends would get $1 million? Absolutely. 100%. So one thing that I learned is that life is a gift. Life is a gift from God, call it the creator, call it source, call it whatever you want to call it. I do not believe in a million years that God created hell for us to go through. I believe that God created life as a gift that was meant to be enjoyed, because that's actually a message that God gave me when I went through my first awakening. It was so clear. And one of the questions I had was like, well, how do I know what's right or wrong? And it was, God said, love. And I thought, love? Like, what do you mean? See, if it's of love, you know it's good. If it's of fear, you know it's bad. It's really simple. So I would be careful of who you listen to on issues of money. Find out what their beliefs are around money. Is it negative? Is it positive? Do they have a lack mentality? If they do, don't listen to those people. All right, so let's read this right here. Life is not about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. When I went through my awakening, this was one of, I don't know if it was the first thing, but it was within the first 2 or 3 weeks of this awakening. Because I was at that stage where I was going to college or just out of college, and all they said, you got to find yourself. I kept hearing, and that kind of like makes you lose yourself, because I was exactly on path the whole time. And it dawned on me, it's like, you create your life. You create who you are. You get to choose. It's like art class. You get to pick the colors. You get to pick the shapes, the shades, what colors you're going to blend together. You get to create your painting. And yes, you get to pick and choose what you believe and what you don't believe. Because a lot of the beliefs that you have were taught to you by demonic narcissists, and they purposely put you in a state of lack and in a state of poverty, or in a state of struggle when it comes to wealth and abundance. If you read the Old Testament, God literally says multiple times to be abundant, to be wealthy, to be prosperous, etc., etc. And yet a lot of people say, oh, money is the root of all evil. It doesn't say that. In fact, that's literally the opposite. But that's what narcissists do. They twist it. It says the love of money, as if you put above God, put above your happiness, your family, health, and just overall happiness. Well, yeah, of course, that's really going to cause you to live a miserable life. But are you like that? No, you're not. Now, if somebody's trying to convince you that going after money, setting goals, achieving your goals, like I want to buy a nicer house, when you're moving forward, this is called growth. This is a healthy, very good thing, and this is what God wants from you. God wants you to set the standard higher and higher, because you're developing, you're growing, there's going to be mistakes and pitfalls, but you develop and you learn. You go, oh, I see what I did wrong, or you see like, oh, this is a better way of looking at things. This is why concepts are so important. Well, what do I mean? Well, for example, like what did we just read right here with this soldier thing here? Says hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny. All of you guys on this channel that are following me, of course except the narcissist, all of you are being prepared to help other people. You're being prepared to launch a business, to go into acting, to become famous, to become a writer, to write a top novel. You guys are here to learn and develop. You guys are here to create something much, much greater than what you are right now, because you are becoming much greater. Admit it, the unbelievable pain and horror that you've gone through, whether it was your whole life dealing with a narcissistic family, narcissistic teachers, friends, whatever, or just the ones who went through that ultimate narcissistic attack. You are so much smarter now. You are so much more aware, and you're a lot more mentally and emotionally tougher. You can deal with things that you never could have dealt with 20 years ago or 30 years ago when you were 15 or 12 or 10 or even 25 or 28. You are a lot better off. You've learned a lot. I know, because you've been listening to my channel. You've been listening to other people's channels. You're a lot stronger now than you were even 2 or 3 years ago. And do you know what that means? That means you can help other people who are trying to climb out of the bucket, who are trying to move out of misery. They're trying to move out of poverty. They're trying to move out of suffering. You are being prepared. You have been prepared. You're stronger now. You're smarter now. You've learned things from me and other people. You've learned things from your own experiences. Now you can help other people who don't know what you know. One of the things that you've learned is to walk away from narcissists, to walk away from people who are trying to play games, and you know what gaslighting is now. So you've learned that. You've learned key things that point out like, oh, this is the time to pull away from this person. You've also learned to protect your heart, your emotions, to put yourself first. You've learned to walk away and realize that's a healthy choice. So one concept is to look at God and realize, how many times does God say it? Does Jesus say it in the Bible? Love. Love is the fulfillment of all the commandments. God is love. God is, it's all about love. The Bible is about love. So if you start reading the Bible from that perspective, wait a minute, this is trying to teach me something. It's trying to show me something. You have learned that God is our Father. You've also learned that a healthy father, which God is, comes from a place of love. So you might start going, wait a minute, so if life is a gift from God that was meant to be enjoyed, wait, are we supposed to enjoy this experience? Yes. So when people come up to you and they preach the gospel of poverty and lack and suffering and pain, they're lying to you. That, my friend, is a demonic narcissist, or their demonic narcissist flying monkey who's been trained very well. Judge by the fruits. God has put this in the Bible on purpose. Is it of love? Is it of goodness? Is it of prosperity? Well, what about Satan? He talks about confusion, doubt, all the stuff that narcissists do to us, fear, anxiety, etc., etc. All of a sudden, wait a minute, so it's really clear. Yeah, it's either of love or it's of fear. That's how you know. It's a really simple concept. So a long time ago, I knew someone and they was trying to convince me about socialism, etc. And it's like, well, what do you mean? Like, what does that mean to you? He's like, well, he goes, it's about more social programs. I go, for what purpose? He goes, well, for more, medical aid and helping people to, to be able to see a doctor. I go, that sounds good. And he goes, yeah. He goes, you can give them more food and housing. I go, that sounds good. And then he goes, and the way you do that is you make everybody poor so we can be equally poor at the bottom together. Because he's a narcissist and that's the way they view things. It's like, well, if other people are richer than me, that's not fair. So to make it fair, is we've got to make them suffer and struggle and be poor like us and then make more programs. And I said, well, there's kind of one problem with that. I said, are those programs going to take money? He goes, oh yeah. I go, do you think it's going to take money to get the food, the transportation, to pay the doctors? He goes, oh yeah. I go, so let me get this straight. So you're saying that if we have less money, somehow we're going to have more money to pay for all these extra programs? And he stopped and he looked at me and goes, oh, I never looked at it like that. I said, the greatest socialist plan is prosperity. If you have prosperity, now you have more people that can give more money into the programs, into the taxes, into the whatever. So now there's more prosperity, not only for these people, but for the people that are struggling. You can have more education, you can have more medical, you can have more everything, more food, more housing. He goes, yeah, I never looked at it like that. I'm like, so do you really want to make everyone poor? See, if I have $1 million, I can help pay your medical bills. I can help you put a down payment down. I can do a lot of things with that. I can even give you education. But if I don't have money, then I can't give you any money. I can't pay for anything. If I don't have food, I can't give you any food. If I don't have medical, I can't give you medical. If I don't have any of these things, how can we give it to anybody? We can't. Alright, so let's read this right here. An alcoholic friend of Philip Yancey once said to him, when I'm late to church, people turn around and stare at me with frowns of disapproval. I get the clear message that I'm not as responsible as they are. When I'm late to an AA meeting, the meeting comes to a halt and everyone jumps up to hug and welcome me. They realize that my lateness may be a sign that I almost didn't make it. When I show up, it proves that my desperate need for them won out over my desperate need for alcohol. So when I was younger in my 20s, a couple people, my brother-in-law was one, he got in trouble drinking and driving, and he was required to go to these AA meetings. And then I had a roommate who was really into this stuff, and he went for years, and he was like one of the head people, ran this one place, and he'd take me to all these other places. And I will say this, I felt more welcome there than I did ever felt in a church. I felt more accepted. That's probably the word. I just felt accepted. I didn't feel judged, and that was one of the most unique experiences. I thought, oh, this is really cool. But at the time, I wouldn't have said that. I didn't really know what it was. I just felt, wow, hey, what's going on? And people come up and talk to you. Hey, what's going on, man? There was an openness there. There was an acceptance there. There was. I tell you what, there wasn't. There wasn't this, I'm better than you, I'm closer to God than you, I'm following the rules more than you. There was none of that. Now, I was a guest. Basically, when you go to these meetings, I don't know if it's, if it's forever or just like in the beginning, but you're supposed to bring like a support person, someone who's from your family or maybe a roommate or something. And that's why I first went with my brother-in-law, and one of the things that was funny, that the stories are wild. It was it was wild, but that was part of the openness. Like, people would just openly share, and I have to tell you something. I don't think there's ever been another place that I've ever been where people felt so free to just share their story. The smiles, the laughter, the hugs, the love. And it wasn't just this one place, because with my brother-in-law, we went to a couple other meetings over a period of, I don't know if it was 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 3 months, and then my roommate, he was really, now this was about a year later, like he was really into, so he would take me to 3 different places in Napa, and then we went one at Concord and one in Walnut Creek, and then we went to 1 or 2 in Fairfield and Vacaville, and then I think we went all the way over to Santa Rosa or San Rafael, and it was the same experience everywhere. So if I were to start a church, the Church of Awesome, that's what it would be like. And the one thing I would get rid of is the people that think it's about rules. I would get rid of the people that are narcissistic. That just wouldn't exist in our church. It wouldn't be allowed. And to really nurture or emphasize, there's another word for it, to grow that sense of openness and freedom and just allowing people to be who they are. It's like, hey, this person had a bad night. This person, they got fired, or maybe they had some problems with alcohol, or maybe they had problems with their husband or wife, or who knows. In other words, it wouldn't be about judging someone and looking down on them and belittling them and shaming them. Here's a concept. A lot of Christians, people, they view God and church as a place of punishment. God's here to punish you, and you're bad, and you're wrong. Shame. That is not what God, especially that is not what Jesus is about at all. So if you've watched The Chosen or read this in the Bible, The Chosen, it's just I'm a very visual person, so it's very good for me. It's a very visual depiction where Mary went back to drinking. She went to the bar, and Jesus showed up, and he essentially just says, Mary Magdalene, or said her from whatever city she was from, and he started saying stuff about her, and she looked, and she dropped her alcohol, and she's crying, and Jesus went up to her and hugged her. He supported her. He didn't punish her. He didn't say, oh, you're bad. Oh, you're off the rocker. Oh, there was no judgment. There was love. There was acceptance. There was nurturing. There was compassion and support. An example I'm going to share, which I've already shared in the past, is so I was a really busy guy. I mean, I was going to school. I was on the football team, wrestling team. I had a job. So I was working at, oh man, I just forgot the name of it. Damn it. It was like a restaurant ice cream place. It was in Napa, and I can't think of the name. I think they still have one in San Francisco. In fact, I think we have one here in San Rafael. I can't think of the name. If it comes to me, I think it's Swenson's Ice Cream, I think is what it was. One of my friends, his mother actually owned the place and ran it. So it was late. I think we closed at midnight, and I think I got off at 12:30 because I was the dishwasher, and I had to clean a certain amount of stuff before we were allowed to leave. Either way, it was late. I was tired. I was exhausted. I think I was in summer school, and then after summer school, I had to go to practice, and then I went to my job. Regardless of what it was, I was super busy at that time in my life. And I had a BMX bike, so now I have to drive miles all the way home. So I'm on my bicycle, and I'm riding home, and I am exhausted. So I'm about 2 miles into it, and I got at least another 2 miles to go. And the road was completely blocked off with all these guys from Oakland. They were big guys, they were older, and they had guns. And they grabbed me, and apparently they were pissed off at someone inside and said, hey, do you know so-and-so? And I was like, yeah, why? And they're like, he's in that house. And I'm like, well, I don't know whose house that is. He goes, oh, there's a party going on there. And the funny thing is, you couldn't really hear the party. There was a party, but I was like, how do you know? And they're like, trust me, he's in there. Go tell him we're out here waiting for him. I didn't really have a choice. They took my bike away from me, and they basically walked me up to the door. So I knocked and knocked and knocked, and no one answered. So I let myself in. Now it turns out this was a friend's house of mine. I didn't know that I just found this out like a year ago. Someone said, yeah, that was so-and-so's house. I was like, oh. So long story short, they started shooting at the house, and all the girls started freaking out. I called 911 to get the cops there, and we jumped out the side back of the house, and it was like jumped over into the oleanders, and we were crawling behind these oleanders because the sidewalk was right in front, and then the street was in front of there, and we're kind of going. Well, Well, someone that I knew had grabbed like half a case of beer or something. They were saying, drink, drink, everyone drink. And here we are hiding a bit between these oleanders about 5 houses down. And I heard something behind us. It turns out, I think there's cops, in the backyard behind us. They're like, no, you're paranoid, you're paranoid. Well, so they gave us all the ticket for drinking. I was the only one who went and fought it. And the judge said, well, if you're within 100 yards or 150 yards of alcohol and you're underage, like you're considered guilty, so there's no way you can get out of it. Now, as an adult, I realized I didn't tell the judge what my night was like. Say, hey, because so he's just assuming, oh, he's a teenage kid, he went to this party to drink, he's lying, yeah, bullshit. Well, you were through. So if I would have told him now as a kid, I didn't know, because they just said, okay, well, tell us, like what. I think they asked me, were you drinking? I said no, and I think it was really quick like that, and then he just made his judgment. If I would have just said, look, Your Honor, may I speak, and explain something? I didn't go to that party. I was working all day at practice, at summer school, etc., and I was exhausted. I was just trying to go home. If I would have told them about the guys in the street with the guns and then said, hey, I was the one who called 911, get that recording and I can prove it. So I could have also got my boss to say, yeah, Michael clocked out at 12:30, so he literally was just driving home, and that was like 15 minutes later, or however long it takes. So here's my point in all this. I go to church on Sunday, and nobody would talk to me. It was ostracization to the maximus. I mean, nobody. So my cousin comes up, he's like, well, you know why no one's talking? I'm like, no, what's going on? And he goes, well, they heard about, I think it was Friday night or whatever it was. And I'm like, really? I'm like, but here's the deal. I went up to try to explain my side of the story, and they literally said, I don't want to hear it. So then I went to an elder, and then I went to the pastor, and then I went to, like, oh, I don't just, and one lady just walked off, and I'm like, fuck, and I literally, excuse my language, I said, screw this, and I literally was like, I'm done, and I walked out of that church. I was like, I'll never go back to that church. That's not what church is about. Excuse me, maybe church is about that. It's about judgment and beating people down and looking for any reason. So here's something that's funny, because I remember before that, they would all just overly, it was like love bombing to the max, because I was captain of the football team, captain of wrestling. I never got in trouble, got straight A's. I remember even as a teenager going, this is a little over the top. It was just kind of weird. Like it was like, oh, Michael this, and like, well, there was other teenage kids in the church, and it was really over the top. But here's the thing. They were waiting for something to drop, anything that they can get their hands on, like a narcissist. Oh, and they thought they had gold. Oh, we got something on you. We got something, and we're going to use it against you. And all I did was walked. And here's the funny, my cousin came home later. He goes, dude, everyone's mouth just dropped when you walked out. So close, but not quite. So I don't think all people in all churches, this was a relatively small church, and it was not a healthy church. Let me put it that way. So that is not what a church is supposed to be about. But here's the thing, even during Jesus's days, that's exactly what churches were like. They just condemned people. They shamed people. It's like, if someone has an addiction, you're supposed to be there for them. You're supposed to pray for them. You're supposed to support them. If someone is having a problem in their marriage or at their job or struggling with their grades, you're not supposed to punish them and, oh, you're a sinner, you're going to hell. But that's what it was like. That's why Jesus came onto the scene and say, no, that's not what this is about. It's about, we're in it together. I got your back. I'm here for you, man. You can do this. And if you show up late, people literally will jump up and hug you and welcome you because they're glad that you actually showed up. They realize you might have had a tough day. You might have had a tough morning. I remember sitting there and other people had came in late, and it was the most beautiful thing to watch these people. It's like somebody be in the middle of the speech. They didn't care if it was the leader or someone telling one of their stories. 3, 4, 5, 6 people would get up, and it wasn't just them. Everybody would turn and smile. You were welcomed. And that's the way it should be at the Church of Awesome. Alright, so I'm going to make another video. It's going to be part 2 of this, and we're going to start talking about what it's like. I'm going to talk about what was said about Joel Osteen and what he said that a lot of Christians attacked him on, and yet God said it in the Bible. Okay, that's going to be in the next video. And it's like, well, actually, technically, well, not technically, he's right, because this is what God says. I'm going to put that in the next video with a bunch of other comments that were spoken about Joel Osteen. Okay. No, I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to give. There's something else that my mother said to me about 2 or 3 years after my awakening that relates to Joel Osteen. All right, so this is Mike Kollin at the Church of Awesome. If you want to leave a donation, go ahead and leave a donation. There's a PayPal link right there in the description box. And please click the like button. If you haven't already, click subscribe, click the like button, and go ahead and make a comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, amen.